What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. This is a Cinebee 4K version. It's finally here and I've been flying it the previous week to this review, giving it plenty of flight time alongside my Geprc 4K Cinepro. You guys know that from, if you did watch that video, if you're looking for a 4K little micro sub 250 gram 4K race drone for cinema type flying and mild freestyle, these are great. They are a little on the heavier side than what I'd normally fly for a micro brushless. Obviously these are not toothpicks, they are meant to do nice slow and cinematic type shots, and the biggest thing that these companies are trying to do is pack all of this technology in there and give you a real-time view and give you some jello-free video as a result. And I think that the Cinebee actually gets really great video. So we're going to talk about the flight characteristics in this video. We're also going to give a little bit of comparison to what is fast becoming one of my favorites in the 4K market right now, as far as Cinewhoops are concerned. The Cinepro by Geprc is just killing it. But this is the box. Let's just go ahead and open it up for you and let me show you the quad. And there it is, guys. There is the new iFLIGHT frame. Prop guards, front and back. It has 2mm top plate, bottom plate, 3K carbon fiber. Super nice looking. Plenty of camera protection, front, top, and from the bottom. You have a bar on the bottom. One thing I don't like right away is that that cable is hanging out. The way that they have it on the other 4K quads, they have this cable flipped upside on the top side and coming out the back here. Now, if you were to buy this, I would probably flip this camera and then go into the Cadex FPV app and flip the camera view, because otherwise you're going to probably shear that wire at some point. That cable harness right there is dangerously exposed. And I've talked about things like this before, and that's probably going to be my first con about this quad. But before I go too far into the quad itself, I don't want to make you guys sit around and wait for the footage. Let's just go ahead outside and let's do some flying with it. Let me show you what the footage looks like, and then we'll come back into the studio and I'll make some recommendations about the iFLIGHT Cinebee 4K. If you bought one, this would be a great video because I'm going to give you some pointers on it right up front. So here we go. Let's do some flying with it. Let me show you how cool the footage looks, and then we'll come back to the studio. Alright, here we go. Let's go ahead and start out with a 3S battery, and let's see what the Cinebee 4K is all about. I think the video looks pretty good. Right off the bat, I have to say, this is a cruiser. It can be a freestyle quad if you want it to be. You can really punch the throttle. And if I can be really picky about the video for a moment, I do see the slightest bit of jello in the center of the screen. There's just a little tiny bit of wobble. But this is also probably some of the better 4K video that I've seen. It is comparable to the Geprc Cinepro. I don't see a whole lot of jello in this video at all. I mean, there might be 5, maybe 3% jello. It's very minimal. So aside from not being able to run 4S battery on this quad, the video is acceptable. Let's just be honest. If you were to really fly this to bring home some cool footage, you can do that with this quad. It is capable of bringing home cinema style whoop footage. My buddy's flying his T-Rex, I believe it was a T-Rex 700 class line of sight helicopter, and I'm staying well away from that thing because I don't want him to crash by hitting my free little demo quad here. So keeping my distance, testing out that 4K video, and this is going to be downsampled to 1080p on YouTube, but it's looking pretty cool. Not often that I get to film a super large 700 class series helicopter. That's pretty cool. So let's go back out in the field now. Let's do a little cruising around. I love the detail of these Cadex cameras. Look at that. When I get low to the grounds where you can really see a lot of detail. And there he's coming in for a landing. He's finished his flight. Really wanted to get this shot of that copter for you. But look how beautiful the landscape looks. This is all about landscape with this quad. You can get down low into the wildflowers. And with the XM Plus, I have a pretty good range. You got at least a couple football fields before you're going to fail safe with this. Now I didn't have the antenna sticking up as high as I'd like, so I couldn't get as much range as I normally would. They were kind of poking out the back, and I removed the antenna posts because they were kind of interfering with the video. And right here I fail-safed into the grass and I broke a prop guard. So now let's just battery down to a 2S, and we're gonna see how it does on 2S. And I honestly think that it does better on 2S. I like that punch out that the 3S battery gets me. You're going to get a longer flight time if you do a 3S 850. It's going to be your longest flight time, but you can also do the 2S 850, and the video seems to have almost no jello on the 2S battery. And sometimes the higher RPM helps me smooth out the video on the 4K Tarsier. But in this case, I think the video looks actually really good on the 2S battery. So you're going to get good video on this quad whether you're running the 2S battery or the 3S battery. I think this looks really outstanding. This is some of the best video on a Whoop I've ever seen. Really great. But I think where we're going to do some real comparison though is when we get back to the studio and we talk about the specs of each of these quads. If we just go head to head on the Cinepro from Geprc versus the iFLIGHT CINEBEE, there are some major differences that you guys have to know about. One is going to be build quality, durability, and the components they used on both of these. I think you're going to be quite surprised at the differences that you're going to get for about the same amount of money. It's quite amazing. So let's go ahead back to the studio now. The video looks great. Alright guys, welcome back from the flight test. What did you think about that footage? I think if we were to compare the footage between this one and the Geprc Cinepro 4K, that they're very similar. I did fly these both in different conditions. I flew the CINEBEE in easier conditions with a lot of grass and not a lot of boulders, but I did have some issues with something breaking, and we're going to talk about that coming up. The quality control seems to be a little bit lower on the iFLIGHT version versus the Geprc version. They also have extremely different specs, so by the end of this video you're absolutely going to know which one you should probably likely buy. One thing right out of the gate that I noticed about the iFLIGHT CINEBEE was that this is a 2 to 3S type of Cinewhoop. It is 107 millimeters, just a little bit smaller than the Cinepro. It does handle wind quite well. I did test it in quite a bit of wind. The trees, branches were moving when I was testing. And also you notice that we have an RDQ strap on here. It has the Tarsier 4K 1200 TVL FPV and 4K DVR combo on here. The Tarsier is riding in the back, and I actually prefer it to be in the front for this design. Geprc, the Cinepro, actually uses the Tarsier in the front, and they put the flight controller in the back. And I've talked to the manufacturers, and they say that it flies better with the flight controller up front. But actually, I'm having washout with this one in some of the hard maneuvers. Even though they say that the flight controller in the front is better, I don't like that because you have to have a longer cable going all the way to the rear of the quad for the Tarsier. So it extends the cable, and what that does is it just makes it more susceptible to damage. I have another quad that another company built me, and they ran the cable all the way to the rear of the quad. The quad is bigger than this one, but they smashed the cable, making that curve to go down and plug it in. So there's not a whole lot of room in some of these quads. The space is very limited, but I do prefer that the Cadex is up front because that shortens the cable, and the shorter cables are actually a little bit easier to find out there on the internet right now. I'm waiting on one of the long cables for the other quad. This also has, like I said, a 2 to 3S setup on here. You cannot run 4S on this quad. You can run 4S on the Geprc Cinepro, which I like. So I'm running the 4S 850 on here, and it is a beast. It handles a lot of wind. It's slightly bigger and heavier than this one, but you're also running the same size props, and they're running a lower KV motor on this one, which allows me to get 4.5 minutes flight time on a 4S 850. So with this one, I'm running the 3S 600 milliamp. That seems to be the best power to weight ratio, and I'm getting just barely over 3 minutes, and that's because they use 1104s. I believe they were 1104s. They're the B motor 1104 8300 kV. So a slightly higher kV. They probably should have used something around the 5,000 kV mark to be able to get a much longer flight time. And you can see right here, Geprc motored up to 1105 to be able to accommodate the 4S battery, but you can also fly 4S on 1104s if you just kV down a little bit. These are 1105 5000 kV, and that allows us to run 4S on this one. So the next thing that we have to talk about is the durability. Now, the first day that I took this quad out there, I did break one of the prop guards, and that was like extremely disappointing for me, because I was really hoping that this one, with its sort of lightweight feel, it is lighter than the other one, would survive some hits. And I flew it in a much more forgiving area. I flew it at the church when there's lots of grass out there, and you know, you can hear this prop guard. Listen to this. This is a little cheaper plastic than what we have on the Geprc prop guard. This is way more durable, and you can look at these a little bit closer up. They're thicker at the top and around the rim. They actually have a little lip on the Geprc version. You see that lip that sticks out, so it is a beveled edge on the top. And they also have dual reinforced arms, so they have two posts there coming off that singular arm, so it makes it a lot more rigid. Also, the type of plastic that they used on the Cinepro is just way heavier grade. This stuff, I don't know what it is. I think it's like polycarbonate or something, but it's ultra thick. I crashed this out in the boulders in eastern Oregon, and usually quads don't come back without something breaking on them out there. It's a very unforgiving environment. Also, the camera survived. Look at this in the very front. I have some scratches on the bottom of that aluminum camera mount. Look at that. It took some pretty good hits out there. And the carbon is also thicker, about 3mm top plate and bottom plate. So a much thicker and more durable design from the Cinepro versus the iFLIGHT version. And I think iFLIGHT tried to lighten everything up here for you guys, but in the process, it might actually give it a little more washout in the super windy conditions when you're trying to freestyle this, because the lighter they become, sometimes they're more susceptible to external forces pushing on the flight controller and resulting in washout. And this is the one that I broke, and I just wanted to show you guys how malleable this plastic is. Even though it is quite a cheaper sounding plastic, it is quite malleable. I mean, this piece just snapped off, so it's a little more brittle than the other plastic on the Geprc quad, but these are not super expensive. But it does take quite a bit of punishment, but is eventually going to break and snap. So yeah, so that's not going to be quite as durable of a prop guard for you. So this is the stuff that you get in the box. You get a CATX OSD menu control board, and this just hooks up right to the harness on the side of the tarsier. You also get a couple posts here for the antenna in the very back. You have this cool TPU mount with the Lollipop 3 on the back, and they just come right out of these two posts right here. But I didn't use these two. I actually took them off because they come right up on the sides of the 5.8 antenna right here, and I felt like this was giving me some interference, blocking some of that signal in certain directions, so I just removed those. My suggestion to you guys would be to take these antennas and bring them up off the top on the sides. You also have 2 points here that you can put zip ties through, so that's what I would do. I would run them up out here on zip ties so that it's further away. The other thing is, out of the box, when I plugged this one in, I had massive interference, and it was looking like this all over the screen, and I was wondering what's going on, because the stock setup for the power cable coming off the back here is through here, and it was right next to the wire for the 5.8. And sometimes I've told you guys, if you have some problems with your VTX and you have interference, move the power source away from the video wire, because sometimes when they're too close, it has a ton of interference, and that's because of the power and the RF getting too close. So once I moved it, all of that cleared up, and I had nice clear video, and I could see my OSD. Also in the box, you get some stickers for your prop guards, which is pretty cool. Those are the Cinebee 4K stickers. You get a right turn USB adapter, and it has a port right here and one that goes into the female side on the flight controller itself, not the Tarsier. This also has a iFLIGHT logo on it, which is kind of cool, but I think the problem with this is that it's a little bit finicky to put in and get in there, because the prop guards, again, they're just in the way a little bit to getting this in there. So you can see there's the port right there, the flight controller riding up front, and it's just a little bit hard to get in there, and I was actually afraid that I was going to break this USB port off the flight controller. So yeah, that's one other thing to think about there. Accessibility to the flight controller is a little bit harder on that one versus my Geprc one. Let's just look at where the Geprc port is right here, and I can come underneath this prop guard straight in there with my USB cable. So that's a better setup than what they have going on here. And last but not least, you get some extra hardware, ton of extra hardware for your props that come on here. And these are the 2-inch HQ props, by the way. And I got 3 straps in the box, which is kind of cool, but these are a little bit too short to accommodate anything larger than a 450 or a 300 milliamp. And honestly, with that high of a kV on the motor, you're going to want to run the biggest battery you possibly can, which is going to be the 3S850. So the Tattoo 3S850 is probably the battery of choice, or the RDQ. The RDQ series 2S550 was getting me just over 3 minutes, and I was getting decent video on 2 or 3S on this quad. So I think the video is good. Just maybe it needs a little more work on the quality control and the design and the layout of the quad. Okay, so I got the scale on. Let's go ahead and set the Cinebee 4K on there, and let me see if I can get it on there right. We have 93.1 grams right there. Around 93 to 94 grams. Yeah, 93.1 again. And I'm going to go ahead and add that 3S850, because honestly, that's the battery you want to fly on this quad. So we'll see what we get there. 151.5 grams. And now I know this is lighter than the Geprc version, but let's go ahead and put the Cinepro on there from Geprc. We'll take that camera lens cover off. 133 on the dot. Now the 3S850 will get you up to 203.6. And I had to go back and just show you guys this. This is the 4S850 on here, and that's 232.8 grams total takeoff weight. Just to show you guys proof right here that it is still under 250 grams. So now we're at the end of the review, guys, and we're going to go ahead and just, lay it all out on the table here, give you the honest opinion between these two. If they're battling it out and I had to pick between one or the other, I'm going to go with the 4S more durable version, because the video is very similar between these two. I also didn't get as much washout with this one. It is a little bit heavier, but it's still under that 250 gram mark if you're looking for something that has 4K under 250. And this one's getting a longer flight time as well, around the 4.5 minute point if I take it easy. I also like the fact that they use 35 amp ESC setup on this one. This one has a 12 amp ESC. These are both the same price quad, around the $250 point. So much more durable, 4K or 3K carbon fiber on here. No problems out of the box, no issues, and nothing broke in my durability test with that. An unintentional durability test. Same with this one, but this one came back with a broken prop guard. So I think this one is probably a little less durable as far as the plastic is concerned. It is lighter, so if you're looking for the lighter one and you don't mind running 2 to 3S, grab a Cinebee 4K. It's not a bad quad for what it is. We have come light years in the design, so I got to give iFLIGHT some props for what they did do on this quad. I think they have a pretty cool quad going here. I just think that it might need a little bit of work as far as the VTX, the placement of the VTX and the power system. I think you're just a little bit too close back there. So you're going to have to reroute your power wire. That's one of the other things. And whatever they have going on here just works. This also has a 500 milliwatt VTX on here, so you can get further out with this one if you decide you want to run crossfire. The flight controller on here is doing really well. It also has dual gyros, dual F7 gyros, which might actually be handling the washout better than the Sussex flight controller with the F4 on board. So the decision's up to you guys. You guys have seen my testing on both of these quads now, and I'll leave you with your own decision which one to buy. And I prefer the Cinepro myself. But thanks again for watching my honest reviews, guys. I'm Justin Davis. Take care. Have a great 4th of July weekend. I'll see you on the next one. Be safe.